At exactly 6:47 a.m., the sun goes dark. Not eclipsed, not clouded over. The light source powering every living thing on Earth simply stops. You have 24 hours before it returns. Here's exactly what happens to your body, your planet, and your mind, minute by minute. And the timeline is far more violent than you'd expect. Within the first 60 seconds, Earth's surface stops receiving roughly 173,000 terawatts of solar energy. You wouldn't feel it instantly. Heat doesn't vanish. It radiates away slowly into space, following the basic laws of thermodynamics. Within the first hour, temperatures begin dropping in direct sunlight zones, the fastest cooling areas on the planet, deserts, and open plains with no cloud cover trapping residual heat. Coastal areas, protected by the thermal mass of the ocean, cool far more slowly. The ocean holds heat like a battery. Hour 2, plants panic. Photosynthesis stops completely, instantly, everywhere on the sunlit side of the planet. Most plants have stored carbohydrate reserves, enough to survive short-term darkness without immediate catastrophic damage. 24 hours won't kill your garden, but it's the first domino, and every domino after it depends on this one falling. Hour 4, the ocean's clock keeps ticking. Phytoplankton, responsible for producing roughly half of Earth's atmospheric oxygen, also stop photosynthesizing. Again, 24 hours isn't enough to meaningfully drop atmospheric oxygen levels. The atmosphere holds far too large a reserve. But marine food chains that depend on constant phytoplankton activity begin showing immediate stress. Hour 6, temperatures crash. By hour 6, surface temperatures in exposed, dry regions could plunge, dropping 10 to 15 degrees Celsius below normal. Based on standard nighttime radiative cooling models extended across a full day instead of hours. Without sunrise to reverse the trend, that drop doesn't stop. Hour 8, the jet stream staggers. Solar heating drives the temperature differences that power Earth's jet streams and global wind patterns. Remove the heat engine, and atmospheric circulation begins destabilizing. Meteorologists modeling this scenario predict increasingly unpredictable, erratic wind patterns, not because wind stops, but because the system driving it loses its primary engine. Hour 10, animals get confused. Circadian rhythms, the internal biological clocks regulating sleep, hormone release, and feeding behavior in nearly every animal species on Earth, rely heavily on light cues. Nocturnal predators emerge on schedule. Diurnal animals active during the day become confused, some attempting to sleep, others remaining active out of pure disorientation. Researchers studying circadian disruption note this kind of confusion alone could trigger cascading ecosystem stress, prey, and predator schedules suddenly overlapping in unfamiliar, dangerous ways. Hour 12, halfway through the dark. 12 hours in, and the planet has now experienced double its normal night length with zero sunrise in sight. Surface temperatures continue falling. In this window, meteorologists estimate wind speeds in some regions could increase by 20 to 30% above normal, driven by the growing instability in atmospheric pressure systems. Hour 14, human bodies start reacting. Your own circadian rhythm, regulated by a tiny brain structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, depends on light exposure to regulate melatonin release. Without any light cue at all for 14 straight hours, your body's internal clock genuinely doesn't know what time it thinks it is anymore. Sleep researchers studying prolonged darkness note this kind of disruption typically triggers extended, disordered sleep patterns and measurable mood changes within hours. Hour 16, the psychological weight sets in. This is where things get genuinely unsettling, and it's not really about biology anymore. Psychologists studying extended darkness, including data from polar research stations experiencing weeks of continuous winter night, document measurable increases in anxiety, disorientation, and a specific kind of dread tied to losing a reliable day-night cue entirely. Humans evolved for hundreds of thousands of years relying on the sun as an absolute, unquestionable constant. Remove it, even briefly, and something primal responds. Hour 18, the cold becomes dangerous. By hour 18, without sunlight to reverse the cooling trend, exposed regions without cloud cover or ocean proximity could see temperature drops exceeding 15 to 20 degrees Celsius from baseline, edging into conditions that become genuinely hazardous for unprepared populations. particularly in already cold climates where the margin for survival was thin to begin with. Hour 20, the power grid strains. Solar power generation, providing a meaningful percentage of global electricity in many regions, drops to zero. Combined with surging demand for heating as temperatures crash, power grids in solar-dependent regions face significant strain. And in worst-case modeling scenarios, localized blackouts compound the crisis exactly when heating is needed most. Hour 22, nearing the edge. Global average temperatures, factoring in both fast-cooling land and slow-cooling ocean regions, could drop several degrees Celsius overall, a genuinely significant single-day shift by any normal climate standard. Ecosystems worldwide are now under measurable compounding stress, though still critically within a survivable window for complex life. Hour 24, the sun returns. And then, exactly as suddenly as it vanished, sunlight returns. Photosynthesis resumes within minutes. Temperatures begin climbing almost immediately. Circadian rhythms start correcting, though sleep researchers note the disruption could linger for days afterward. Ecosystems recover, mostly. This wasn't extinction level, it was closer to Earth holding its breath. But here's the sobering coda. Every process you just witnessed, the cooling, the ecosystem stress, the psychological unraveling, all of it happened from losing the sun for a single day. Now consider this. The sun has been reliably, unfailingly present for the entire 4 billion year span of life on this planet. Every organism that ever evolved here did so trusting in the deepest biological sense that tomorrow the sun would rise again. So here's the question worth sitting with. If 24 hours of darkness is enough to destabilize weather, confuse ecosystems, and genuinely unsettle the human mind, what does that tell you about how fragile the constants we never think to question actually are? If you found this unsettling, subscribe, because next week, we're asking an even bigger question. What happens if Earth's magnetic field disappears? Let me know below, could you have survived the darkness?